Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Seattle's Eastside Real Estate Podcast, the podcast dedicating to living, working, playing, and anything obscure on the East Side. Not necessarily have to be obscure, so you know. It is Wednesday, September 29th, and we are live on both Facebook and YouTube. I can read your comments, so if you have any questions, comments, thoughts throughout the podcast, feel free to shoot it over either of those platforms. Now, in addition to that, we are streaming in locations where you can listen to podcasts later. So you can subscribe to us on both YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and others. That basically syndicates out. My name is Dan Edwards. I'm a managing broker of the Eastside Real Estate Team. We are located in Bellevue, Washington, serving the greater East Side, which is Bellevue, Kirkland, Issaquah, Sammamish, Bothell, Redmond, North Bend, Snoqualmie, Kent, Kirkland. I already said Kirkland, so we serve it twice. Isn't that cool? Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Today we're going to be welcoming Lynn Liedle, owner of Advantaclean on the East Side, to discuss why cleaning and removing mold is not a DIY project. But before we get to that, we are going to have some real talk. We're going to talk about real estate. So let's get to this market is crazy, right? So we're talking about the housing market that has been incredibly favorable for sellers. But what about buyers? Where's the good news for buyers? Well, in addition to interest rates being low, that is definitely a good opportunity for buyers to lock in a nice 30-year fixed loan at a low rate. But the competition's been tough. So we looked around and see, well, what is the real opportunity here? And according to Realtor.com, the sweet spot for buyers is coming right up. It's just around the corner. According to Realtor.com, recent studies have showed that looking at housing market trends, the research shows that nationally, the best time to buy is the week of October 3rd through 9th. So hopefully anybody watching this or listening live right now, if you haven't talked to your mortgage broker to get yourself qualified, one of the best weeks of the year historically is coming up. Now, why is that? Well, it is a balance of real estate conditions, market conditions. What's the first one is increased housing supply. So now, seasonally speaking, this time of year, most folks are kind of done with the summertime into the fall in the Northwest here. The weather shifts. People spend a little more time inside, and maybe heading out and buying a home may be something they decide to put on the back burner. Because as you know, a home takes about 30 to 45 days from contract to close. So they're kind of getting close to that Thanksgiving time window at this point. So it's going to pull a few buyers out of the market, thus allowing some inventory to linger a little bit. According to the according to the Realtor.com findings, we found that roughly 17% more homes are available now than at the start of the year. So it's not 17% of the homes since maybe May or April, but since the start of the year. So there's supposedly a little bit more inventory, more options for buyers. The other point there for potential buyers is there may be fewer bidding wars. Now, I want to point out the words down below are not no bidding wars, but fewer. Right? So there are definitely more options available, fewer buyers in the market, allowing for a buyer to maybe not to have to be as aggressive for their purchase. The next one is an interesting one, and this is according to the report at Realtor.com, is home prices are a bit historically, we see some price reductions. So you have some sellers that maybe shot for the moon in their price, and they're starting to see an appreciation. And like I had said before, with properties moving a little bit forward in the year and getting closer to the holidays, they want to get that home in contract. They can do only so many things to the house to make it more appealing. At some point, you have to make a price improvement. That's what we call it in the business, price improvement. So historically, the data shows on average about 7% of homes have a price reduction that week, October 3rd through 9th. So you're seeing an uptick, maybe a few buyers, and that might be that perfect opportunity. What I would say, if you're out there and you're a buyer and maybe you've been on the fence and you're not sure if it's the right time to buy, well, we'd be happy to chat with you. We'll look at your situation. Probably the most important thing is to be prepared. If you're not prepared, then opportunity just moves on past you, right? And we're gonna encourage you to reach out to us, and we will be happy to help you find something. Now, So that's our Real Talk segment. I hope you found that useful. Up next, we're going to be speaking with Lynn Liedle. But first, here is a short, let's see how this works. It's a short commercial break.
You know, we're living in uncertain times right now, and it's nice to have something comforting and local. Aaron Andrews with Indie Chocolate has new ways for you to fall in love with chocolate. Please visit Indie Chocolate at Pike Place Market or order Indie Chocolate on their website. IndieChocolate.com. That's INDI chocolate.com.
In these uncertain times, are you in need of some great quality comfort food from the South without having to make it? Honest Biscuits has got you covered with amazing biscuits, both savory and sweet, and Southern food like biscuits and gravy, fried chicken sandwiches, and cheesy grits. They even have delicious gluten-free options and vegan options. You can order on our app for pickup, order through several delivery partners like Uber Eats, or they ship their biscuits anywhere through their website at www.honestbiscuits.com.
All right, we are back. That was kind of cool. I'm just trying to figure out how to work all this stuff. Well, like I said, we are inviting in our guest here. Let me see if this works. Boink. Here we have our guest, Lynn Liedle with Advantaclean Eastside. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
All right, we've got some other stuff here that I'm going to put up. I'm going to go ahead and put your website here. So we have that up there so people can know where to find you. All right. So we are talking. Let me do your introduction. Actually, that's what I was supposed to do. Okay. So we're here with Lynn Liedle, co-owner of Advantaclean on the East Side. Advantaclean was founded in 1994 as a franchise owned and operated by Home Franchising Concepts. There we go. Their core focus is healthy indoor air quality for residential and commercial customers. They accomplish this through a business lines of emergency water mitigation, fire mitigation, mold remediation, crawl space moisture control, HVAC cleaning, and outdoor control. Lynn holds a bachelor's in psychology from Gonzaga University and has built her career around a focus on client experiences and customer care. Buying and growing her own Advantaclean franchise has allowed her to put these skills to work in a meaningful vocation where she can have a positive impact on her community. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lynn.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go to some of the questions. But before we jump in, so this is a show about real estate and the real estate, services. So tell me a little bit about the home you grew up in. And some fond memories from that.
Absolutely. I grew up in Puyallup, so just down south. Moved into a tri-level home when I was 4. My parents stayed there until I was 16. And it was definitely a fixer-upper. We all had a role to play in doing chores. And when we first moved in, it was the 1970s shag carpet.
Nice.
So lots of great memories of working on the home and helping my dad. At the time I was a very good hammer holder, nail holder. Now I can be out with our crew doing demo with the best of them.
Awesome. So let's talk about mold, right? That's always a big concern, not just for anybody, but a lot of people moving from outside of the Northwest have a concern about mold, right? Because it's everywhere. So what is the big deal with mold?
So mold is natural. It's part of our environment. It's out around us all the time. Becomes a problem when we have higher counts of mold spores in our home versus out of our home. It can do damage to the structure, and in some cases, it can do damage to your health as well. So we go about looking at the mold process that we do the remediation from both a health standard and from a structural standard to protect your investment.
Okay, so now, what about can't you just use bleach to kill it and you'd be done with it?
um, Great question. So, commercial bleach, you're going to go to Safeway, you're going to buy your bottle of Clorox.
Mhm.
That bottle is almost all water with a tiny little bit of Clorox bleach in there. So, let's talk about mold. Mold needs three things to survive: it needs a food source, it needs moisture, and it needs a certain temperature. Now, that certain temperature is a really wide range. It's about 40 degrees to, let's call it just over 100 degrees. So, pretty much any temperature range that you experience in the Pacific Northwest, the mold's going to grow in. Moisture, we live in the Pacific Northwest. We have lots of moisture. That bleach provides moisture. Food source. Favorite food source of mold would be our drywall. Our drywall is made of gypsum, and gypsum is something that mold loves to eat. So you see some mold on your drywall and you think, I'm going to clean this, I'm going to pop some bleach right on there and it's going to kill it. Well, you have the thousands and thousands of tiny little mold spores. You may have killed one or two, but in the process, you just put water on their favorite food source. So your mold is now growing more.
Okay. So essentially, just cleaning the surface only cleans the surface, doesn't get deep.
Yeah, exactly. Mold has the equivalent of roots.
Oh.
It digs in. It digs in and it holds on.
So what if it's dead? What if this mold is dead, though?
So mold spores still have been shown to have toxic properties, whether they're dead or alive. So if it's dead, that's possibly a really good piece for your structure and that you're not going to have any more damage occur.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're concerned about what you're breathing, you're still breathing in the mold spores. Dead or alive does not matter. You're still taking those toxins into your system. So proper mold remediation is the removal of mold, not the cleaning of mold.
Gotcha. So can't we just ignore it?
You can always make that choice. If those food sources are active, you will have rot. You will have greater damage to your property over time.
Mm-hmm.
Health is one of those. Advantaclean is non-alarmist. Some people, it may not affect them at all. Others, I've seen a small amount of mold intrusion literally put somebody in the hospital.
Ooh.
So that is a personal journey and one that only you can know. So that's why I say we have to go about this in a couple different ways. But I will tell you, it will wreak havoc with your property. And if you're investing the thousands and thousands of dollars that you're investing in your home, maintain it. Don't let it go. It's very simple to do a quick, easy, small mold remediation project. The longer it sits, the more damage that's done, the
Mm-hmm.
more expensive it gets. So protect your investment.
Okay. So I'm going to bring up something from your guys' website here. So this is some of your case studies up in Bothell,
Mhm.
and for those watching online, maybe it might be hard to see this, but on the left here we've got kind of dark sheathing, and I see this a lot of times in houses, right? You through inspections, and not necessarily going up into the attic myself, but you'll see this. It's just kind of blackish, and it's kind of so, and it's usually out towards the end, towards the soffits. Um, so tell me why that's a problem. Why can't you just ignore something like that? It's in a place where nobody's there. You know, what I mean, why not just ignore that?
Great question. So again, this is twofold. If you see a mold attic, then you've got a problem with your actual building structure. That means that there's ventilation problems in your attic. So something is not right with the system of the house and needs to be corrected. Those the mold that you're talking about where you're seeing it down lower and more towards the exterior,
Uh-huh.
typically speaking, your soffit vents are blocked with the insulation. And so you're not getting proper airflow in there. Now, yes, you can leave the mold, but again, there's moisture in that attic and it's on that sheathing. So what it's going to do is it's going to slowly work its way through. It's eating it. So it is going to rot it out. If you have it fully and properly remediated and you have your ventilation problems fixed, you've now just saved yourself thousands and thousands of dollars on potentially having to replace that roof.
So hypothetically, you don't have to replace the sheathing. You can actually remediate it and then fix the
Absolutely.
ventilation.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So I'm putting you on the spot now. Let's see. This one looks pretty gross. That's asbestos, right?
Nope, that's not
No.
asbestos. So that is mold. It's just what you're seeing there. There was ceiling tiles.
Yeah.
And when they pulled down, you're seeing the remains of the glue on that. But the asbestos is a great question. So asbestos remediation is very specialized as well. Advantaclean will test for asbestos. And then we have great referral partners that we use to do the remediation if that is necessary. Because that's mold is a specialized beast to remediate. Asbestos is a specialized beast to remediate. Lead is a specialized beast. We do lead, we do mold, we use a referral partner for asbestos.
Okay. So now how does the mold get there in the house?
Several different ways. Again, mold is all around us. It's outside. So as we're moving in and out of our home, mold spores are coming in and out with us. So again, it needs those three sources. So as we're moving in and out of our home, if we have an area where there has been water intrusion, something has happened, those mold spores are just going to naturally gravitate there and they're going to start multiplying and growing. It is just it's a very natural product. It is all around us. You don't see it. They're tiny, tiny, tiny. Picture, when you were a kid and you would pick that dandelion that's gone to seed and you'd blow on it and make a wish and all those little parachutes would go everywhere. That's essentially what one tiny little microscopic mold spore looks like and how it behaves.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So somebody can go in there and just take drywall off and clear it out. What's the difference between hiring a professional or just having any old general contractor or your cousin come out?
Absolutely. Really good question. So there are specialized contractors for a reason. And just like you're going to hire a specialized electrician to do your work, you want a specialized mold remediator contract. Again, those spores they go airborne. They go crazy. If you do not know how to set your job, set containment, use the proper tools, and go through the proper method, if you have Handyman Joe come in and just, you know what, I'm going to just cut this out right here and I'm going to walk through your house with it. He is carrying a piece of drywall through your house that nothing's been treated, nothing's been protected, and he has set all those mold spores airborne. So now you have an excessive amount of mold moving through your home. You're breathing it, And any other moisture anywhere else, it's going to go find it. It's going to have a little party on it, and it's going to grow.
Grow, a little party on it. Woohoo.
Yep, exactly. So mold remediation, when done by a professional remediator, involves several steps. We create a containment system where we're making a chamber in the area where we're going to work, and every other area of your house is protected because of that. We set what we call negative air. We use a air scrubbing machine. We turn that machine on, and it's vented very specifically so that before we ever start working, we're starting to process and clean the air. Because the minute you start manipulating mold, you send the spores airborne. So we want to control the air that we're working in. And then the process for us involves, we use a HEPA vacuum system so that we can pull all the surface spores off, get them contained in that special HEPA vacuum. We remove the affected area that we need to remove. The area that we can continue to treat gets that HEPA vacuum. We treat with an antimicrobial product. It's hospital grade, organic. It's absolutely wonderful. We also do wire brushing because that pulls the, what's the equivalent of the roots out of the wood surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
If there's staining, we will remove the staining, and then we complete everything with another HEPA vacuum, because once we've wire brushed, we've brought more spores up to the surface. We HEPA vacuum all of that. We do a treatment in the air again. And depending on your project and the protocol, you may have that air scrubber running in that chamber for a couple of days. And then we come back, wipe everything down, and take it down. And in that process, we're in specific PPE. We're not coming and going from that chamber, because anything that gets on us could come out. When we're removing affected debris, it's in heavy duty contractor bags. Those contractor bags are duct taped shut, and they're wiped down on the outside before they're carried through your home. So it's very specific.
Very comprehensive too, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's like covering all bases. And it doesn't mean that mold won't come back, right? Because you had said it's everywhere. But I mean, the surfaces that are treated, how long are they guaranteed for?
So the way this works is it depends on what caused your mold. Usually we can figure out pretty easily what the source of the mold is. And if we know what's caused it, once we've remediated it, unless you have another water intrusion problem, it's not coming back. It's not coming back because it needs the three things.
The conditions: food, water.
Food, water, temperature.
And proper temperature.
Most of the mold that we work with, we can find a source of water intrusion that has caused the mold growth. So where it gets tricky is if we are not able to find that source, then we have to go through and maybe use some other resources. Sometimes we'll call in, depending on the kind of project, we'll use an environmental hygienist where we'll have them come in and do some testing. So there's some things that we can do to try to get to the actual source of the problem.
Gotcha. Well, so for our listeners, either listening now or later, we like to, is there any kind of special promotion you'd like to offer out there?
Absolutely. If you find you are having a mold intrusion, maybe that attic of yours has some mold in it, or you've got some crawl space issues, mention this podcast, mention Eastside Realtors when you call in, and you will get 10% off of your estimate. And estimates are always free.
Free estimate, so that you'll come out, take a look, see if we have a problem, and then give an estimate on what it would take to remove it. And then on the ticker down below, Advantaclean.com/Bellevue-WA, right? That's your website.
Yep.
Cool. So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time. And I think that it's super informative. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that concludes our wonderful podcast. And we do have a special coming up. If you are one of our power partners, you should have received an alert about a gathering that we have coming up. So check your emails, check your text messages, and RSVP back to us. On behalf of the Eastside Real Estate team and the Seattle's Eastside Real Estate Podcast, thanks for watching.